Hooray and hallelujah, and welcome to Rhodes Smart Camp. I'm sitting here in my wonderful apartment with my amazing mother. Yay, Mommy.
Good grief.
Yay, us.
Yay, us.
I love you always say that. Yay, us. So, you were supposed to fly back to Florida today, but Hurricane Milton is headed directly for Central Florida, where you live.
Yes, I thought about it, and I was going to go home.
Mm-hmm.
But the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, that's not the smartest thing to do. And maybe I should wait a couple of minutes. And so just to see, how much of a hassle it would have been to change the ticket, you called them yesterday, and it wasn't that much of a hassle.
Yeah, and we decided for you to stay here this week. And
even though you're not going to be here.
Yeah, I have an unexpected trip to Oregon I have to make, and leaving in a few hours. And you're going to be here by yourself for a few days.
Yes,
and
it's a good
It's
thing.
interesting because everyone who knows me or knows my comedy or listens to this podcast knows that my mother doesn't like Los Angeles, but you love me, and that's the only reason you come. And then
That's
now
right.
Los Angeles is your refuge during the storm.
Yes, it's a good thing. I like my company, and you have tons of books I can read.
Yeah.
And
this is where we rode out the pandemic together.
Yes.
You were visiting me when the pandemic hit.
For 1 week.
For 1 week, you only brought 1 week's worth of clothing. And then you stayed here for the first 4 months of the pandemic.
Yes.
And we did great.
We did great. I kept using your T-shirts and
My
stuff.
T-shirts. It was funny. I have so many T-shirts in my dresser drawers from my travels, and I remember, and it was so cute, like seeing you. You'd put one on, and I know sometimes, like maybe you might not know who Marvin Gaye was.
I definitely didn't
what
know.
he looks like, and then it was cute to see you wearing, different T-shirts of mine. And then I remember one day you came out, and it was an Amsterdam Hells Angels shirt.
Oh my goodness!
And I said, "Yeah, Mom, maybe not that one." you and the
So
Amsterdam
why would
Hell.
you have one of those shirts?
They had a gift shop. in Amsterdam, they used to have a gift shop.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, and it was like a skull and crossbone on the front with the symbol of Amsterdam, and I think it said like "Defend Amsterdam."
I
something
guess
like
I didn't look at it close enough because I usually don't like skulls.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
there you go. You got to look at the stuff before you put it on.
Before you put it on. So, and for anybody who's listening, there's people who've never been to Los Angeles or California and who hate it for various reasons, whether it's, what they see on TV or what they've heard. But you dislike Los Angeles, and you're allowed to because you've actually made an educated opinion because you've been here so many times. When I lived here years ago, and Laura, my beloved sister, and your beloved daughter, when she was still here, we had some good times back then. But since I've lived here, every time you visited, something really weird happens.
Yes.
Well, I mean, like the pandemic, number one.
Yeah, that was.
And then the riots happened.
Yeah.
And we were here.
Well, on the pandemic part, I remember thinking that the main roads to your places, were, even though you live in a pretty nice area, are kind of ugly.
Yeah, because we would walk around the neighborhood.
And then when we started walking around the neighborhood,
The
if you just go one block over, there's some really nice places.
Yeah. The main streets are all garbage and don't have many trees.
And it's not that
polluted
pretty.
with billboards. And,
well, but the side streets are amazing. My goodness, each house was unique, and the plants here are so
plants.
really, really different. It seems as though desert plants grow with mountain plants. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's also
and these plants,
funny.
this neighborhood's been here for over 100 years. So some of these old houses that are 100 years old, like some of their bougainvillea bushes are, who knows how old they are.
And they use them like fences, in
Yeah,
so
the
you can,
bushes.
so you can't see the house.
Yeah.
And probably there's a wall underneath, but and some of the trees are so old that the sidewalks are coming up.
Oh, yeah,
But
the roots have pushed them up.
yes,
Yeah.
but it's
I always
just-
think that skateboarders must love this little section of the sidewalk.
yeah.
They could get air.
But it's really interesting to see the side streets.
Yeah, and you're right. The side streets, the houses are beautiful. There's beautiful plants and foliage and
Yes.
vegetation. We saw there was an African tulip tree
Yes.
not far from here.
And the reason we know that is because I have this.
Picture this app
Yes.
where you can take a picture of any tree or flower, and it tells you the name and the origin.
It even gives you poems that the flower was in. And sometimes it tells you if it's healthy or not and what to do about it, which is really kind of cool.
That's really cool. That app blows my mind.
Yeah.
And we really got the best use out of it during the pandemic when
We did.
go for our daily walks around the neighborhood, and we learned about all the trees in the park across the street. And
There was a Mickey Mouse plant.
I was yeah.
It's
Mickey Mouse flower? I've never heard of such a thing.
Me neither. And it did kind of, I mean, you have to use your imagination.
Yeah, the ears.
But it really
and
did look like it had ears.
Yeah.
And it was just out there in between a house and the street.
Amazing. And I've never seen such a
There was stuff I had
exotic
never
flower.
seen. Mostly the desert type flowers that are so different.
Yeah, and the big thing, and it's so cool. You and I have lived through a lot of things. Like, remember when I lived here in the '90s, I took you to Joshua Tree National Park.
Oh yes, yes.
And then there were these little baby rattlesnakes.
Yes, I almost
And I
got
saw
bit.
the mom coming in quickly, and I said, "Mom, look out!" And you jumped left, and
I heard it.
If you had jumped right, I would not be talking
Honestly,
to you right now.
I heard a rattle, and I thought, "Oh my God!" And I said a quick prayer and jumped, and I never saw it. I just heard it, which was a good thing because I would have freaked out. But we got out of
Yeah,
there.
I always thought they were
right after that.
nocturnal. I didn't know they were out in the. Well, I guess movies are always out in the daytime.
I don't know.
And then the first time we went to Yosemite, we were in Yosemite Valley by the little red church, and
Oh, that was wonderful.
we saw what we thought was a deer go behind a big rock, and we
Oh,
were going
yeah.
we wanted to take its photo, and then it turned out to be a bear. And you
Yes.
ran quicker than I did. You remember that? You were hurtling fallen trees.
I kept screaming, "Tommy, Tommy!" Oh my gosh! And people were running towards this bear. I mean, it's a wild animal out there.
Yeah.
Wasn't paying much attention to the people, but if you got close enough, maybe it might turn around.
That comedian last night, John Wing, he's from Canada, and he was telling us, we were talking after the show, and this is a joke that he does. I thought it was really funny. He said, he didn't do it last night, but he was telling me that, like, if you see a brown, if you see I think it's a brown bear, you're supposed to lie down on the ground. Or if it's a black bear, you're supposed to lie and pretend you're dead. If it's a brown bear, you're supposed to, like, put your arms up and act big and go, ah. So he sees a black bear and he starts going, ah, or a brown bear, whichever one it was, and he knows the bear. He got it mixed up, and the bear was thinking, he thinks I'm a black bear.
It was funny.
Yeah. So, the big event with when the riots happened, and we went to the protest
unbelievable.
across the street, which was very innocent, with young Asian families and Jewish families
Yes,
with their little tiny
because
kids.
it was the pandemic.
Yeah.
We were on the edge out in the back.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to get too close to people because, we didn't really know how dangerous this thing was. And
The
then,
virus, yeah.
yeah,
We
and
were
more,
on the perimeter of it.
yeah, more and more people came, and so we decided to just go on.
Well, these agitators, this is like white turd dude in his about 35 came. I remember he comes marching through the crowd going, "This is a protest. Let's tear some shit up."
Yeah,
And that's when we looked at each other and said, "Let's go back home."
home.
And then a couple hours later, the neighborhood was on fire.
I know.
And you and I are running back and forth from the television to the balcony to see what was happening, because it was happening. You could see it.
We were on top of the police.
Yeah, the police.
They were all on this NBC.
CBS Television City.
Oh, it's CBS. Okay,
Yeah.
wrong one.
They used the parking lot as their staging area.
And they were fire people, and they were all kinds of people. And
You can see them putting on their riot gear. And then
yeah,
they
gosh.
were, the police left 2 unattended cop cars at the corner on the intersection of Beverly and Fairfax and walked away. And so that was like an invitation. Once those cop cars, someone set them on fire.
Yeah, that
They
was
probably
crazy.
left a gas can with matches on the hood.
No, come on.
But I mean, it was practically, they left it there.
Well,
Because once they
who knows
were
what
on
happened.
fire, they had the license to
well,
go
we
out
saw
and
the
bust
fire.
heads all day.
I mean, we saw that, and we saw all these people. And when we watched the television, it was like, where's the people with their babies and
Yeah.
stuff? I mean, it didn't seem like it was the same people.
It wasn't the same people.
So,
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, it was the craziest thing
No,
ever.
people take advantage of that moment.
It was
you know?
crazy. And
But the funny thing was, you told me that day, you said my idea of people protesting is they just want to riot and loot and set shit on fire. And I was like, Mom, this is Los Angeles. Things are more relaxed here, Mom. And then like 2 hours later, the neighborhood's on fire.
yeah. And they hit this mall next door. And
Yeah, the Grove. Then they hit every store.
Except
they
the
looted every
bookstore.
store except for the bookstore.
Is that crazy?
They didn't
or
touch
what?
the bookstore.
But the next day, we went to see the damage. I'm not sure why we wanted to see the damage, but we did.
We wanted to see- yeah.
We walked around, and the mall people were already painting over all the graffiti that they had put out. But the coolest part was that people from the neighborhood were there cleaning up.
The whole neighborhood came
whole
out with
neighborhood.
brooms.
Wow.
And they had
That-
turpentine, and they were like
that was-
rubbing off the graffiti.
You
That
know-
was really, and they didn't show that on the news.
No, of course not.
But that was the most beautiful thing. That the
Yes.
next day, how
Somebody had water for people.
Yeah.
It was people coming together to do something good,
yeah,
and that was amazing. And they should have shown that.
yeah, they should have.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. So the other thing during the pandemic, when you were here for those 4 months, or was it? I just
think
in my
it was
memory,
4
in my
months.
memory was.
Yeah, because
But
I wanted.
and I live in a nice area. It's it's the center of West Hollywood, Los Angeles, whatever you want to call it. And we were walking to go to the grocery stores, and there was some homeless guy on the side of my building. We're walking. This is every time my mom visits, like the weirdest shit happens and the craziest people jump out of the woodwork. And like, I'm trying to explain to my mom, like how lovely Los Angeles is. And there's so many nice things about it. And we're going out of the building, and then there's some homeless guy taking a shit.
Yep.
And we saw the dookie.
In the middle of the day.
In the middle of the day, and see the dookie dropping. It was, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Sorry, Mom.
Okay. Well, you can't time those things.
No, and then the thing, and I've told it on stage, the story about you like pastrami sandwiches, and I took you to Canner's, and it was this big, tall, homeless guy, and he asked us for money, and we go buy him, and sometimes I give money. I'm pretty generous with homeless people, but I didn't give this guy money. And you and I are walking, and I feel this hot breath leaning in on me, and the guy goes, "You're greedy." And I was so startled, like, "Are you talking to me?" The guy goes, "Yeah, you're greedy." And I go, "I'm walking with my mother." And the guy leans in my face, and he had just totally drunk, drug crazed, bloodshot eyes, and he just goes, "Your mother's a bitch."
Gosh, I
And
remember trying to pull you
you're
into
pulling
that.
me into canners, and like, oh
Oh,
my god.
gosh, that was kind of
And I'm not a
scary.
fighter, but like, guy calls your mom a bitch. It's like, it's funny how you will react.
Yeah. Well, I finally got you inside that store.
Yeah. Well, we talked about that story when we were in Jerusalem. It's a great story too. And we're walking around in the old city, the ancient city, and there was like some little storage area, and it looked very National Geographic with burlap bags full of grain or beans or rice, and just
There was a lot of colorful things out
it
there.
looked like a National Geographic scene of an exotic country. And you took a picture, and there was a guy, older man, in there working. I'd say he's probably about 10 years older than me. And he just goes, "Don't take photos. This isn't." He goes, "What do you think? This is a zoo?" And then he was pissed, and he was yelling at you.
He was not happy.
And very loudly and sharply I said, "Be nice to my mother."
We walked
And
away.
the dude shut up instantly.
Oh,
And he humbled himself, and we,
Yeah.
went off
But
because I don't care. I don't know if he was Jewish or Muslim or Christian. I don't care. And this guy knew it too. There's one religion that transcends them all, and that's a child who loves his mother. And I would have beaten that guy's ass because he
Well-
was getting really huffy.
it was.
And we walked away, and
Yeah.
I was like, "I have news for you, pal. You do live in a zoo."
Yeah, and we.
Jerusalem's on the news every night. My entire life,
Mm-hmm.
every angle of it has been studied. And
It was an interesting place. It was a really interesting place.
yeah, so I love that you're such a reader. I got my love of books from you, and I just recently finished this book on the history of pockets. And you just read
Well,
it.
you had the book out, and I
Yeah.
thought pockets. And it says An Intimate History of How We Keep Things Closed by Hannah Carlson. Well, I thought, pockets, good grief. They write about anything. And I expected this book to be kind of a fluffy kind of a book.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started to read it, and then it said, about men have pockets, women don't have pockets. And I thought, oh, good grief.
Well, it's kind of it's written by a woman, and I never realized from that it's kind of from a feminist perspective. Well, not feminist perspective, but just that women don't have pockets. Even to this day, on their pants, they'll have your pants now have no pockets.
Well, I was going, this is ridiculous. But, convince me that men have something and we don't have something. So I'm reading the book, and I look down, and, I didn't bring my entire supply of pants, but I didn't have pockets. And now that I'm conscious of pockets, I don't have pockets on this pants. And I started looking at the other pants I had brought. There was one that had a regular size pocket on one side, but on the other side, a teeny little pocket that maybe a key would fit. And so now I'm looking at
Yeah, and then
pockets.
yesterday in the thrift store, you found this perfect coat,
Yes.
a women's jacket, and there was no pockets on
No
it. And it's a
pockets.
beautiful jacket. It's
beautiful-
perfect,
yes.
other than the fact that it has no
It's
pockets.
a great code for Florida because it's silky and no
Light,
pockets.
yeah.
Light. Yeah.
But the woman says that back when in the suffragette movement, when women were trying to get the vote 100 years ago, that at the same time, a lot of them were saying, the inequality of pockets also, that women should also be equal and have pockets, because men can put, all these, tools and gadgets and things in their pockets, and women have to carry these bags.
Well, she had a lot of different. This is not a book you can read just from cover to cover in
No,
two
it took me a while. I read it in
I had
sections.
to think about it,
Yeah.
and okay, so she really did convince me there was a difference. And she had some, and it's full of pictures to show her points. And she had a photo of Thomas Jefferson had ivory pocket notebooks, and they were like a little fan, and you could erase the ideas that you would write down.
Oh, wow.
And so it said, let me read you a tiny bit here. He used these devices to record the temperature, wind direction, weather, bird migrations, and other seasonal changes, such as the appearance of flowers, jotting down observations throughout the day on an erasable ivory notebook. Jefferson would later transfer his notes into his more permanent records at home. If Jefferson was a walking calculator, his suit was akin to a mobile laboratory. And I remember going to Jefferson's house in Virginia, and he had a lot of innovations.
Oh, gadgets
and stuff. And he really had a lot of new innovations agriculturally. And further on in the book, she goes, there was a woman who was rather a loose person.
She was a hooah.
Well, yeah. And she had a similar pocket notebook where she would write down plausible excuses for any occasion that she could use on all her lovers. And that was
to cover her dalliances.
Well, pretty interesting stuff. And
then there was, it's interesting to think in the perspective of pockets, just also the women's dresses didn't have them. And even to this day, like pants and jackets, women are deprived of pockets, and they're just supposed to, stand there and look pretty while, men can conceal all this stuff. And throughout history, William of Orange, the king of the Netherlands, was assassinated. I don't know what year, but and this is, this was a huge event in European history, world history. And from reading this book, a big thing that's forgotten now, the detail was that the assassin, he concealed the pistol in his pocket, which at that time people hadn't really thought about, you could conceal
weapons.
Things.
Yeah.
Because men started, I guess this happened earlier in history where in England, men were wearing all these French fashions, which were really like frilly and had ribbons on it. So King George or whoever it was thought the men should be more manly. And he had a tailor design a suit clothing for men, and it's the three-piece suit that men still wear today. And then in the three-piece suit, it's full of pockets. So and that kind of started the styles for men, because once upon a time, men all carried bags too. They didn't. Pockets wasn't a big deal.
They also, she had so many interesting stories in this book. And I think you got this book because you heard a talk where she talked
I
about
heard
the
her
book.
being interviewed on the Canadian news, the CBC.
It's really an interesting book. And she talks about how Lincoln,
Abraham Lincoln, when he was assassinated, the contents in his pockets.
Yeah.
He had 2 pairs of reading glasses. He had
a handkerchief.
And then he had newspaper clippings from positive reviews of himself.
Because, a lot of people were against him.
Yeah.
And which is hard to imagine now, but
it's amazing to think that such a historic hero, that he had self-doubt also, that he needed positive reinforcement.
Yeah. And I found the talks about all the stuff she said about the slaves and how they didn't have pockets, and it was just
So they
interesting.
couldn't steal stuff, right?
Well,
Wasn't that?
yeah, I think that was part of it. I'm not sure right this second, but she had some really interesting stories of things that happened, and that people like would try to pass for free persons when they were really slaves, runaway slaves, and you could tell the difference by just little different things.
Whether or not they had pockets and the way they dressed.
Yes, and the colors that they wore. It was very interesting. This book was amazingly interesting. I didn't expect to be so interested, and she's right. And she really did convince me that there is a difference between the way men's clothes are and women's clothes are. But another kind of cool thing, I'm going on and on about this book, but how Hollywood portrayed what they thought was the future.
It was a H.G. Wells movie.
Yes,
Orson Welles.
Orson Welles. In the 1930s, had all this idea of like
what the future was going to look like.
Yeah,
in
like
this movie.
Yeah, look at this.
What was
photo.
the name of the movie?
The Things to Come, or wait a minute, it was. It was. I forget what. The Things to Come, or something like that. But look at this photo showing this Raymond Massey as John Cabot in Things to Come. That was
Things
the
to
name
Come,
in
1936.
He had like a radio telephone arrangement on his chest and a bracelet which accessed an identification disc, purse, pocketbook, fountain pen, watch, notebook, and flashlight. I mean, that guy really had it pegged, of things that were happening.
It's amazing. This is a great book, and I thought it was really fascinating when I heard this woman interviewed. But years ago, I wrote this joke, and I think it's a brilliant premise, but I never came up with like a great ending punchline, and I thought, oh, if I read this book, maybe it'll help me finish this book. But I think all of our problems in life started with the invention of pockets. Because once we had pockets, we started picking up pretty shells and shiny rocks. And then the next thing you know, we started trading them. And then that led to coins and currency and credit cards and all of our current debt crisis and all the stress that keeps us all from being happy because we owe so much money to people.
It's all the pockets.
It's all.
Gotta blame something.
If it wasn't for pockets, we wouldn't be in so much debt.
It was an interesting premise, and I didn't realize how women's pockets are different than men's pockets. I'm going to have to check that one out. But
well, I think, there's only a few political things I will identify with publicly. And so now I demand equality for women's pockets.
Good grief.
Keep Tahoe blue, and free the nipple. Those are my three political stances. What do you think?
You don't really want to know, honey.
I love you, Mommy.
I love you too.
I'm glad. I'm just so impressed at how quick you can knock out a book.
Well, this one is slow going because I need to think.
Yeah.
Which is one of my favorite things about books.
And another thing we've done in the past week since you were here visiting me, we knocked out season 1 of Emily in Paris.
Oh my goodness!
And what a great show!
It was pretty good,
And I told you when it first came out, I think it was on the Guardian newspaper or somewhere. I read a review of the show, and it ripped it to shreds. And it said that it was a stupid show, and it made all these stereotypical French jokes. And Natalie, who was my first love of my life, who's from Paris, and we're still good friends, and her husband Patrick is from Paris. And a couple years ago, they told me they were watching the show. And I said, oh, I read this review, and it said that it just makes all the cliche, stereotypical French jokes. And she goes, well, they're all true. But it just shows you that, sometimes these reviews are way off the mark because it's such a fun, enjoyable show.
Well, I think you should look at this stuff and make up your own mind and not listen to somebody else's opinion.
Well, we burned through. It was like we binge watched it.
We did that whole first season, and it was interesting. I like to look at the clothes that they had because
that's
they were
the
interesting
coolest thing.
clothes. I mean, there was a lot of sex on the French section.
Yeah, she's got like kind of an intern job. She lives in a little one-room apartment, but she's got the most killer wardrobe.
Where did she put all this stuff? I
Yeah.
mean, get real. It's kind of Hollywoodish.
Yeah.
Hollywoodish.
Yeah.
Unrealistic.
But it's fun. It's good.
But it's,
and then the shots of Paris are
and the
amazing.
idea of working for somebody who doesn't like you and wants to sink you is interesting. I've had bosses like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's interesting.
It's good. So, okay, so now I have to go to Oregon for 3 days, and you're going to be here by yourself.
I am.
In the Tom Rhodes Museum. What are you looking forward to doing by yourself?
Peace and quiet. I'll miss you.
Oh, well, I'm going to call you every day and make sure everything's fine.
Okay.
And I hope you get outside and walk around the neighborhood.
Off and on, yep.
Yeah. And
I try to do 5,000 steps a day, although, 10,000 is an aim that I don't usually do.
Oh, this is funny, too. You love food. You expanded my mind and my palate, and and that's been the greatest thing about traveling the world is I love food and I love trying things. So I want you to have great meals.
Thank you.
And then I took you to a Korean restaurant this week, and it was very mediocre. And then I took you to this Italian restaurant. It was also very mediocre.
Well, you are more adventuresome than I am, and you like hot food, and I don't. Spicy, and I don't. I mean, medium,
Yeah.
And sometimes when it says medium, it's a little more than you can take.
Yeah.
Than I can take. But it's always an adventure to go out to a restaurant because I don't really go out that much. So I enjoy going to any restaurant, even if they are sort of mediocre.
Mm-hmm.
But it's okay. Once in a while, you hit a real jewel that is a hidden restaurant.
Yeah. Well, in the farmer's market, we went back to Trejo's Tacos and the fried chicken tacos.
Yes, and I
Trejo's Tacos
really
are
like
great
those.
because it's basically there's no bones in it. It's fried kind of chicken tenders, and instead of a tortilla, it's on a lettuce leaf.
Yes.
And they're really messy, but they're really good.
And we did the pancake thing, the French pancake.
Oh, the crepes.
Crepes. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We had the
crepes, remember?
Banana strawberry with Nutella.
That
and
was
whipped
pretty
cream.
good.
That was really nice.
Yeah, and that was the first time I came to California. Laura took me there.
Yeah.
And
that was our spot. We used to... I used to meet Dad and Laura at the farmer's market for lunch all the time.
And it was interesting to see them cook it right there, making those crepes in a square.
And every woman I've ever been in a relationship with since 1996, I have taken to the farmer's market and gotten crepes there.
It was an interesting place. It changed hands already.
Yeah. Well,
But it was
we
good.
got history there.
Yeah, we do.
And then during the pandemic, it was great. It was like really empty.
Nobody was there.
No one was there except for in the two produce places stayed open.
The candy
The
place.
poultry place, the butcher, the candy place, and the donut place
Yeah,
stayed open. So,
yeah.
yeah,
We
Mom.
have,
You might not like Los Angeles, but you're connected. You got history here.
I'm only here to see you, honey.
I know, Mommy. So, as we wrap it up, we wish everyone in Florida,
Yes.
it looks like it's heading right for the middle of
Yeah, I was there for
the state.
the Helene hurricane, and I went to stay at the house of my son John and his family. And we were on the edge, although once in a while the wind and the rain was pretty heavy, but it wasn't, we can't say it was a bad one for us. It wasn't.
Right.
But other people
But
had
what was
it
it?
pretty bad.
Was it 2004, 2006 when you had the
2004.
4 in a row?
4 in a row,
Rolled right
one
over
a
Central
week,
Florida?
one a week.
And you and Laura had to shelter under the stairs.
Yes, we did. You had to find your.
I remember that. You guys put the little blankets and
We did, and I had a dog, and so the three of us were
Wow.
in this under the stair
wow,
room.
taking a direct hurricane hit.
Yeah,
That's
and
amazing.
we had wood on the windows and the doors, and it got really dark in there.
Yeah.
Every week I would take that down, and
Yeah,
and here comes another one. We had to put it up again.
I remember you were like the only one in your neighborhood who put wood
No,
on.
there was a couple of people,
Okay,
but not many.
But I remember it was like
Not many.
the day before the hurricane was going to hit. As it's about to, one of your neighbors comes up and goes, "Do you have any extra wood?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
What am I
now's-
supposed to do?
Now's a really great time
I
to
said,
be
well,
thinking
your
about
safe spot,
Yeah.
because they had a place like mine,
Yeah.
was under the stairs, which was a really large area under the stairs, actually. It was pretty big. You could put a whole
But
mattress.
it's smart
and-
that you were.
well, we were trying to be prepared,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
But and then we evacuated on one of them and went to Atlanta, and the silly thing followed us to Atlanta, and trees were down, and
All those hotels
good
along
grief.
the highway.
Well,
They
we
all
ran
jack
out,
up the price.
Yeah.
Ridiculously.
and then just leaving Florida, we ran out of gas. I mean, the gas stations were out of gas. We were in a row, like there were 4 cars in
Yeah.
a row following each other, friends.
Mm-hmm.
And the gas stations were running out of gas.
Wow.
So it's not that easy to evacuate either,
No. Yeah.
unless you evacuate real early.
Yeah. And then all the traffic.
But we were
and-
having to wait for people to get off work.
Oh wow.
So,
Well, I'm glad you're going to miss this one. I'm glad you're
me
staying
too,
here, Mommy.
actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So kick your feet up. Watch the next season of Emily in Paris.
Mm.
And okay, Mama. I love you so much. You're the person I love the most on the planet, and thank you for
Thank you. We are having a great time.
being such a kind and beautiful human being.
Oh, thank you.
I love you, Mommy.
Love you too, honey.
Hooray for humanity. Hug your mother.